What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? I am your host, King Ralph, and I'm here with the homie. Thank God, because I was like, bro, if you start talking and your mic is muted,
I'm, I'm here in the flesh of flesh. Well, you know how it is. Whatever that saying is, I'm here. I'm back, and I'm black. So let's go.
my
All
man
right,
ready.
man.
I'm ready. My man ready for Juneteenth already.
Facts. Hey, facts, man. Couple of weeks. You know.
But
All right.
we got a good show ahead of us, man. We about to jump straight in. So someone who I hold near and dear. Actually, before we get ready to jump in, let's send a shout out to the sponsors. 707 Fit Boxer. Call that number if you want to do any podcasts like what you're watching, photo shoots, music videos. Call 707 Fit Boxer. And make sure you go and follow all our socials. We got them running that on the ticker on the bottom at KYNGRALPH for myself. For all my socials, add an underscore for Twitter. If you want unbiased breakdown and analysis with NBA season wrapping up, type in at the.house of hoops on Instagram. And let's go and let's jump in. Speaking of NBA unbiased breakdown analysis, my man Melo has officially retired, saying he's passing the reins to Kion. Did he deserve a retirement tour?
Yes, I know I might be in the minority when I say this, but he deserves some type of send off. Should I say right? Why? Because one, he's a uh prolific player in the NBA, right? He was able to turn the New York Knicks franchise pretty much into a relevant franchise. Okay. That had been relevant and devoid of relevancy for pretty much a decade or so, a little bit longer than a decade since they made their finals run. If you remember, in 1999 as an 8 seed. That was when Larry Johnson had the bad back, if I'm not mistaken, and Patrick Ewing did not play in that. So I look at Melo as someone of that form. I look at the fact that he's part of a historic draft class that featured one LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. He is part of that trio, that three musketeers, right? The Banana Boat crew as well, right? So I look at it from that perspective, and I'm like, yeah, Carmelo Anthony is definitely deserves one. And also, you got to think about how he was able to turn the Denver Nuggets franchise around, which we'll probably get into in a minute. So, yeah, I believe and his Olympic play, Ralph, as well. Like, legit Olympic play, 3-time gold medalist. Like, how many people have 3 gold medals in Olympics? And you just can't be like, oh, it was Olympics, you're playing with a bunch of talent. No, he was a key contributor to that Olympic team, despite the little jokes that people try to poke at him with the whole workout thing. I don't think that Melo was actually lazy at all. But people just took that little clip that he said and they ran with it and turned it into something that it shouldn't have been. I personally feel that way. So yeah, I believe that he did deserve a retirement send off.
I agree, man. I think that it's a rare class of individual or as a player who deserves that honor. Like I think when you can be as good as Ray Allen and not reach that pinnacle or reach that tier of player, just to use him as an example, no shade toward Ray Allen at all, but I think that when you think of an Allen Iverson, he deserved a send off. Um, a Michael Jordan, a LeBron James, a Kobe Bryant, like Draymond said, Draymond meant it with shade, like you ain't Kobe when he was
Paul
talking
Pierce.
about Paul Pierce. But I just think that there's a certain tier that you get to where you deserve that type of send off, and I think that he's done enough for the league, especially those two franchises,
Mm-hmm.
with what he was able to do in Denver from year one, made the playoffs, and
Fact.
so until pretty much he was traded, then it
Mm-hmm.
goes to the Knicks, and they win a playoff series for the first time in well over a decade, like you mentioned. And so I think that when you have those types of impact on teams, I think that it's hard to not say how that person deserves that type of send off
Right.
from everybody and appreciation. I think the perception of his decision to stay with the Knicks instead of signing with the Bulls
Mm.
is another reason why he kind of gets looked at a certain way, because it looked like regardless of what he said when it came to that conversation with Stephen A, that he made the decision based on the people in the organization telling him, yeah, don't do it.
Got you.
But us on the outside, looks like you chose the bag over winning.
Right.
Because regardless of Derek not being there, regardless of the dysfunction between Paxson and Thibodeau, I still think that they had a good enough team. You had Jimmy Butler coming up the ranks. Regardless of Derek and his injury history, I don't think that was an issue. That was a factor at that point because he had got hurt. So I think that there's so many different things that you look at. You could say like, all right, it looked like he chose the bag over, rather than winning, and I think that that's one of those things where the way we looked at him took a turn.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, even saying all of that, what does his legacy mean to you? And I'll ask the question within this.
Okay.
It talks because Jokic now wears his number, 2-time MVP, taking him to a finals, something Melo was not able to do. Does he deserve his number to be recognized within that organization?
Yes, it does need to be recognized, and you can actually retire two of the same number. People, it's happened before. It's happened. I'm not sure if it's from the same franchise or whatever, but I'm saying like it's possible. You can actually do that if you want to do it. You can do it.
Right.
Just because when I think of Denver Nuggets, I think of Carmelo Anthony. That's no shade to Jokic. That doesn't mean that Jokic may not be the wind up being the face or whatever. But you got to think about it like this: there's a subsector of fans, Ralph. I'll use an example, generational, right? Okay, that they think of Magic Johnson when they think of Lakers. Where millennials and people like me and you, we think of Kobe Bryant, and I consider Kobe Bryant the best Laker, hands down, no dispute. But there's older heads too. But with Carmelo Anthony, I like how you mentioned his playoffs, right? I was going to bring that up. Just a little context. He did get robbed from the Rookie of the Year award. LeBron James actually mentioned, and he's very glowing about Melo. He said, I missed the playoffs, and Melo made the playoffs. He said that like 2 days ago, right? He made the playoffs on a team that I believe won, if I'm not mistaken, I want to say it was it 23 games or was it less than 23 games prior to the season he was drafted? Not only did he lead them to the playoffs, they went up against a 58-win Minnesota Timberwolves team with Kevin Garnett as the league MVP. Everyone, league MVP, Kevin Garnett, and he got a game off them in the first round. This was back with what me and Ralph would call the Wild Wild West, when you didn't have a play-in tournament. You had 50-win 8 seeds in the Western Conference. So you got to think about that. So I think that just being able to do that, you mentioned like going up against a LeBron James in the Eastern Conference, and guys like Melo, guys like Joe Johnson, gave them, work. So to answer the question about his legacy, I believe he was respected well by his peers. We can look at Kobe Bryant, who said that he was a bully, meaning bully in terms of just a low down low. He could give it to you in the paint and the perimeter from the mid range. He had a lightning quick first step when he first came into the league. He's a prolific scorer, one of the wettest jump shots that you will ever see. So much so that he told Michael Jordan, there was a story, he said, don't teach me offense. I already know how to score. Teach me something else. Right. So, you know what I'm saying? And he was very good in Olympic play. He actually played some of his best basketball, I believe, in Olympic play. And maybe had Amari Stoudemire not broke his hand punching a fire extinguisher, the Knicks could have done some things. So, yeah, just as a basketball player, I think he's an ambassador for the game. He's a good mentor for the game. And he was a great player. So that's what I'm going to always remember Carmelo Anthony as.
Yeah, and I think that one of those things that you got to put it into perspective and take your personal feelings out of the way, because I think that sometimes when we get to talking about certain players, personal feelings get into the way of the analysis and breakdown of that player and how we view them. And so I think that when it comes to Melo, like, put it into context. He was clutch in his prime. He hit big shots. He wasn't afraid of anybody. When the game mattered, he played defense, regardless of how we look at it. It's regular season stuff. There's so many different players. He's not the first person to get to a certain spot not being known for defense. Because Charles Barkley was one of my favorite players. Do we think of Charles Barkley when it comes to the conversation of defense?
Not really.
No, we're not. So it is what it is when it comes to that. But being able to score as a 3-level scorer, mid-range bully, jab step. Just go look at what they call it, the triple threat master. And so I think that when we talk about him try to focus on the good parts when it comes to his legacy, because there's so many great things that he was able to do, from the Olympic play to clutch shots after he hit a game time jumper to tie against the Bulls, and then he hit a three to beat to. I've seen it firsthand, and so I think that he's a phenomenal player. Definitely deserves his number to be retired in New York as well as Denver. And then next up, we got Big Deal or whatever.
Okay.
Your rival, the great Big Ben.
The great Big Ben
has came out, and I'm not sure if he has a podcast or if it was just a radio show, but Kenny Pickett was on there and they were having an honest conversation.
I saw,
He came out and he said at first he did not want Kenny to be successful.
Mm-hmm.
Do you appreciate his honesty? And is this a big deal or is it whatever?
Personally, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's whatever. And I do appreciate his honesty, because when I listened to the full quote and what he said, and, he said that, he spoke in terms of anyone who is in a position where they believe their job is being threatened or they're going to lose their job, despite the fact that they have been in tenure on that job and they performed at a certain level and at the highest level at that, right? You never want anyone to be replaced. So I appreciate his honesty, because it came from a place of what I like to call, shout out to SWV and Michael Jackson, human nature. So there you go. so I always use that. I'm a music guy, guys, so I use music references. So yeah, it was human nature. I was like, I actually like transparency, and this is what I like about podcasts, Ralph, is I like athletes to be transparent, to be forthright, to tell their honesty. Maybe we agree or disagree, or maybe we feel some type of way about it, but I had no issue with it. And I'll give you give me one example. For the sake of time, I'll give you one example. Brett Favre. Brett Favre was on, if you remember, what is it, Gruden's camp or Gruden's QB thing, that it used to be on ESPN. And he always mentioned why he played all the time, right? Because he had the Iron Man. He has the Iron Man most consecutive games record, right? And he said because he never wanted to his job taken from him. He was always felt like, scared of someone taking his job. So he would play through different injuries and ailments that most people wouldn't play through, or doctors say, hey, don't play through this, right? So much so that he got addicted to painkillers, unfortunately, at one point in his career. So I don't have any issue with Big Ben saying what he said. I appreciate the transparency. He's a rival, but, be honest about it, Ben.
Right.
So,
all right, next up, the NFL. Wait, let's make sure we're on the right track here. Yes, the NFL owners approve. After the owners' meetings, they approve a flex schedule from week 13 to week 17, pretty much meaning if the game is too important, we will move the game from Sunday or Saturday to Thursday, whichever way it can be moved from Thursday to a Sunday game or from a Sunday game to a Thursday game. And so is this a big deal or is whatever?
It's a huge deal. It's a big deal because it directly affects, ticket holders, right? So plans, hey, I'm coming in a certain day, right? And people understand, people have, full-time jobs, people have kids, people are making hotel arrangements. Now they have to say, hey, maybe we have to stay a day or whatever, or vice versa. Now they said you're going to know this 28 days in advance, but you can know something 28 days in advance. And still, if it's summertime or whatever, based off when the football season is, things can still be, not summertime, but hotel time. You're still basing off someone else's already pre-planned schedule when you're doing traveling. You know what I'm saying? Like you trying to switch up travel stuff. Also, it's a big deal for the NFL because they're doing it for revenue purposes. It's the Amazon Prime partnership that they have, right? So, yeah, it's a big deal. Another thing is, I'll give you another thing. Thursday night football, player safety. What happened to player safety, Roger Goodell? We talk about Thursday games, so you want to have a shortened week. And let's be honest, I've said this time and time again. Thursday night football games, they're downright awful. There's a couple every now and then you get at least one, maybe two that are good, that are high scoring, low risk, injury risk games, but they usually put the games that nobody wants to see on Thursday. So when I think of Sunday football, and I'll swing it back to you because I'm sure you have thoughts on this, I like the big games, Ralph, on prime time in Sunday. Or I like seeing my team a division game. I wake up 1 o'clock, or well, I hope I could wake up 1 o'clock. I would love that, but wake up 1 o'clock in the afternoon, right? And hey, you know what I'm saying? Like, let's watch a division game. So
yeah, I get it, man. I think in my personal opinion, I think it's as a fan of the game who's just going to watch the game from home regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I enjoy it because we always think of those games. It's like, man, like I said, I'm off at 1. So if they move that, if a game I wanted to watch was moved to Thursday, then it's like, all right, cool. Like, that'd be great because I'm off at 1. I'll be able to watch the game at night. Now, if it's the other way around, which most likely it'll end up being, I would see it more as if it was a Thursday game, the importance of it, let's get the ratings on the day where people are sitting out watching football, which is Sunday.
Okay.
I just don't see them moving an important game to Thursday. So I get it on both sides when it comes to the business side as a fan and as well as on the business side. But then as a person who would have a ticket, regardless of 28 days, like you said, 28 days, as much as that sounds like a lot of time, if you're making a lot of arrangements to go out of town and then like buying a ticket in the middle of the week versus buying a ticket for the weekend, now I got to get this same ticket and move it a couple of days. You go that same ticket, a plane ticket, depending on how far you're going, is now going from, it could be $150 round trip, or it can balloon up to $6.
Yeah.
Regardless, not regardless, but depending on where you're going. So I think it's a little messed up, but what do you do?
All right.
Next up, at first we had it where Lamar was going to be missing OTAs, but he reported today. So now the question is, he came out and made some statements, like any quarterback would. It's been a lot of speculation, with the new offense coordinator, whether or not he's going to throw the ball more or run more or run just as much as he has been. He has came out and said, I want to throw more and run less. Is this a big deal?
Yeah, it's a big deal in terms of for his personal growth, continued growth, as a passer. It's a big deal. Also, I think that being the fact that they've made a concerted effort, the Baltimore Ravens in the offseason, to surround Lamar Jackson with weapons to strengthen that wide receiver room by bringing in a premier receiver in Odell Beckham Jr., by bringing in a Zay Flowers, a receiver that Lamar Jackson, he himself scouted and wanted, right? So you're getting him pieces that Lamar Jackson wanted. And you have a new offensive coordinator who was actually top 4 in the league. I think actually might have been number 1, in total passing yards and passing offense in 2018 with Jameis Winston in the Bucs, right? And also has been underneath the Freddie Kitchens offense in Cleveland, where Odell Beckham played at. So it's a big deal in terms of just making sure that those guys feel involved, right? And his thing is that Monken wants to preach balance. That's pretty much what they really brought him in there for. So he's still going to run. But, it just makes, I think, Lamar that much more dangerous. Is his best attribute his legs? Absolutely. But you also had to look at the fact that, you want to always make sure that, you have everyone involved. There's always, want to maintain health and all that, yada, yada, even though his injuries have been sustained from the pocket. And Greg Roman even came out and said that. But anything that can, help the quarterback, anything that can help the offense, it's cool. So it's a big deal. And the last thing I'll say about that is he was also quoted by saying he likes the offense. It's fun so far. So far it's early, like second day of OTAs. But Zay Flowers did the same thing. So as a Ravens fan personally, I'm excited to see. And I think it's a big deal. So we'll see how he continues.
Big deal because I think that the possibility of creativity in the offense, where if you use his legs to suck in the defense, but then at one point, once they pull up close, you have speed deep that can take a quick slant to the house. If Odell can come back and be the player that he was before the injuries, I think it'll be clutch. And I think that it's a big deal in that sense. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. Next up, the Celtics come back, win Game 4.
Mm-hmm.
So they go back home. They were able to get a victory in Miami, which no other team has been able to do that so far in the playoffs. So,
Right.
what are the chances the Celtics make a comeback in this series?
I'm gonna give them about a 45% chance, so slightly under 0.5%, only because the first they're going up against history, right? So if we're not mistaken, now that the Lakers have been swept, right? Now teams are 0-150 when down 3-0, right? So now the series is 3-1, correct? Yes, 3-1, right?
Yeah.
So now they got to win in Miami. It was a needed win. It was elimination. Now they're going back home, but Miami has already proven not just once but twice that they can win in Boston, right? So I think that Miami has no qualms or fears of winning in Boston, but Boston is the deeper team, right? On paper, the more talented team at the time because you're without the services of Victor Oladipo, you're without the services of Tyler Hero. So I'm looking at it like that. And Oladipo was actually an integral piece. I think I mentioned in our last week show, defending Jaylen Brown last year. But nonetheless, I think that Jimmy Butler has empowered his teammates very well. I think that they've been able to shoot really well. The Gabe Vincents of the world, the Max Strusses of the world. I think with Gabe Vincent, though, we got to look at, that ankle, things of that nature. But I'm going to give them a 45% chance. I thought about saying 50, but I'm just going all against the history. And I believe in Spoelstra. I believe in Jimmy Butler going to get it done. Sometimes we see this where a team, they win the game, they go back and the team still beats them. So I'm going to give them a 45% chance. But if they win, then that changes everything. We'll be back here. We'll be back here some other time. Like, what happened?
And this is the thing. I know Charles Barkley gets a lot of flack, and I agree, but I actually agree with this one. It's not a real series until they win this game.
Yeah.
Game 5 has to be won because then at that point, we're going back to Miami. Can they get a second win to take it back to the house? And so I think that. Yeah, like I definitely agree. I don't think that it's a series until that happens. And so I think at this point it's just cool conversation. More basketball.
Yeah.
So I'm never going to argue with more basketball.
Right.
That situation is going to be interesting because of how the game played out. Gabe Vincent spraining his ankle, like we texted about.
That could be huge.
A fluky injury.
Yeah.
You never know. He could come out and have the game of his life. I've seen sports. Some of my best games I've had are come after spraining my ankle. So I think that there's a lot of things that can go into it. Teams underestimate you. You try not to overcomplicate your game and stick to your strengths and stay away from your weaknesses. So you never know how it could play out. But I do think that I can see the Celtics winning this one. So with this victory, with them going home, I think I'm not going to go as high as you because then at that point, that's a yes.
You got lower.
Yes, that's a.
Okay.
I just don't see it. I think that's a little on the high side.
Okay. That's fair.
I think 45%. So I'm gonna go about. They got a 25% chance.
Okay. I like that too.
But I can definitely see it happening because they're going back home. They've already won one in Miami. Pretty much the most consistent player on the team, maybe including Jimmy Butler, has been Gabe Vincent.
Facts.
So that ankle injury, depending on how it happened, that turn looked kind of nasty, but not well enough to where like maybe he breaks it. Is close to a fracture or anything or a high-grade ankle sprain. But I think it'll be enough to where it does limit his mobility.
Okay.
And so next up, we got the Nuggets. They swept the Lakers, like you mentioned. Regardless of who wins, are they the favorites to win the finals?
Yeah, I think they have to be the favorites to win the finals. If they're not the favorite to win the finals, when are they going to be the favorite to do anything, right? With all due respect, because Mike Malone's been beating the table. He's like, yo, y'all don't respect the Nuggets. And with all due respect, I did pick the Nuggets to win the West, but I believe that the Lakers could beat the Nuggets. And so I'll be like, are you hedging? I'm like, no, I'm giving basketball analysis when I'm presented with new information, right? Even though I believe the Nuggets were the better team and they were the best team in terms of how to build a team of players around your superstar with good coaching. That's what they were. And this is, I would say, about a 3-year process since the bubble with the Aaron Gordon trade. So, but yeah, they should be the favorites, the number 1 seed. They've been the most consistent team in the Western Conference, one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent team in the NBA, if we're being real. Durable superstar, and Jokic, seems like Jokic never misses a game. You know what I'm saying? And they have the shooting, they have the length, they have the KCP. He's play inspired. Bruce Brown, I know a player that both me and you like. And I think Michael Wilbon, correct me if I'm wrong, I think Michael Wilbon had said something about Bruce Brown was a player who's been good everywhere he's gone. You wonder, why is he going from team to team, right? So eventually someone needs to give him his bread, right? So, yeah, I like the Nuggets in terms of, their consistency. And I'll end it with they have the altitude on their side, but I would love to see a Miami thing because Miami has Jimmy. They have that, that never die attitude, and also Miami has that humidity. So I just think the flying back and forth from the high elevation to the low elevation would actually be pretty cool. And they're underrated 3-point shooters. But let's not get ahead of ourselves because the series is still going on. But yeah, I think they should be the favorites right now. And they're going to have the rest advantage as well. So we'll see.
I agree, man. I think that they should, regardless of who is playing.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing I'll say is as wishy-washy as the Celtics are, I do think they are better equipped.
Yeah, to beat them.
To beat the Nuggets rather than the Heat.
Yeah.
Now, could this be me doing the same thing as the media has and just not discounting them but counting them out to a certain degree? I just don't think they have enough.
Yeah.
Because when you have like Bam, can Bam stop Jokic? I haven't been able to look at to go as far as looking at the numbers or seeing how they played against each other before, but conventional wisdom will tell you no.
You're right.
Then the one thing that's intriguing about it is Jokic is not their closer typically.
Facts.
It's Jamal Murray.
That boy is cooking.
Now having that information, seeing it through this playoffs as well as when it was in the bubble, when they're at their best, their closer is Jamal Murray. So now putting him against Jimmy Butler, Jimmy is definitely going to take that challenge and try to guard him. But
to what cost on the other end? See, that's the thing.
And so I think that it's definitely one of those things where it's going to be intriguing. I do think the matchups of things is going to be dope to watch, but the guard play, regardless of who gets there, is really going to be a big deal. But I do think that Jokic, although it's Horford who's a little older, I don't think Jokic is so like slight of foot that he can just take advantage of what Horford's weakness is, which is he's an older, slower player. So a lot of times you can stretch out the defense and take advantage of being able to go past him. And so I do think that the Celtics are better equipped, although I have them only with a 25% chance of beating the Heat. So regardless of who gets there, the Nuggets are definitely should be the favorite.
And Jokic was throwing up some haymakers from 3 last game. I was like,
sometimes it's so frustrating watching him, bro. Because
man,
that stuff looking so ugly, and it just goes.
I was thinking that Ralph's probably watched this game like, this dude, what is he throwing up, man? Like, everything's going in.
He did a step back jumper from behind his head, faded away, and nothing but net. It's a wrap, bro. Just pack it up.
Can we get that on 2K and a 2K layup pack? Not layup package, but a shot package or something?
Oh God.
All right.
After he hit that 3, it was like, Cancun on 3.
All right.
And I can't deal with it, bro. And so I'm like,
He's Dirk reincarnated, man. That's
Don't make no sense, bro.
right.
But next up, we got centers going into the draft.
Okay.
So obviously, everybody should have Victor Wembanyama at number one. So we could talk about him later in it, but
okay.
Nobody should start off with top centers in this draft. And the one thing that sucks is that I think the one conversation we got to have at some point is I feel like the center position has become like the running back position.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I think it's great to have one, but you don't need a top tier one in order to have that top level success. Now I know we have Jokic, who has got his team to the finals, but like I said, their closer is still not Jokic. So regardless of how you feel, I think Jokic is the glue guy. But in order for them to get to that next level, they needed Jamal Murray.
Right.
And so
you still need 3-point shooting and stuff like that too. Exactly. Like think about it, like the Nuggets, the Warriors last year.
Exactly.
So you got to still be able to hit the three.
So I'm gonna let you go first. Give me a center, someone who's intrigued.
Okay. So I'm gonna go with the university that I despise the most based off of my ACC ties, my former ACC ties. Shout out to Steve Francis, went to Maryland as well. But I didn't, but I'm from there. So anyway, I consider I'm affiliated with them. I'm gonna roll with Derek Lively, the second that we talked about from Duke. I'm not a Duke fan, guys, but when I look at him, I look at another guy who has the size in terms of the length, 7 feet tall. I'm kind of similar in some ways to Jackson Hayes, actually. Because if you think about, I actually was a fan of Jackson Hayes, still am actually. Shot blocking ability. This is somebody that you can rely on defensively. So if you need someone to defend, he has the agility to be able to defend well in space, actually. So I look at that because I'm looking at things that can translate to the next level. Because Victor Wembanyama is the clear-cut, like, generational talent right now. But I look at Derek from that standpoint. The issues that I have with Derek, Ralph, is his offensive package is limited. I feel like his game is very if you have like a shot chart from like 0 to like 10 feet in terms of like where he's getting his dunks, his lobs, stuff like that. DeAndre Jordan kind of ran into that issue in the NBA level when he won money. So if he can expand that game and, get a more consistent jump shot, right? If he can get a consistent jump shot, I think that will definitely help. Because I'm like, if you're going to defend, just be able to shoot on the other end. I still want Bam to be able – I've been begging and pleading if Bam could just hit that like 10 to 15 footer. You know what I'm saying? Like he does it sometimes.
This is not consistent as it should be.
Thank you. But Derek, I think his mixture of size, athleticism, and agility mixed in one at that size is going to be key. So I'm going to roll with the Duke person and also the level of competition that he was able to play throughout college. So that's the guy for me. But I'm personally, just me personally, I'll swing it to you. I'm just personally not enamored with a lot of these centers. Not saying that they'll be bad, but I'm just not enamored with them.
Yeah.
So
I think outside of honestly, when I go and I look at their talent level and projection, because I think that's the one thing that I thought was pretty interesting, and I feel like Colin Coward makes a lot of like some wild takes.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Shock value.
I do think that the one thing that he did get right was when it came to Anthony Richardson. This is probably one of the first picks in the NFL where I've seen in a long time where they're picking kind of like an NBA team would pick. Meaning we have this 6'4", 6'5", 240-pound rocket of an arm, 4'4", 4'5", almost 4'4", 6 speed, where if I can mold him into the quarterback I want him to be,
yeah,
it's going to pay dividends. who has a higher ceiling of the quarterbacks that were all in that draft than him.
Mm-hmm.
So now when it comes to NBA, is how often do we see pretty much everybody that's not a top 3 pick in most years is going to be, can they be molded into the player that team wants them to be? Because the lottery is all about, at this point, nobody's going for the 4-year senior who came in, his game is polished and well-rounded. We're looking at that.
Yeah.
Oh, he's 6'8", but got a 7'2" wingspan, has a 40-inch vertical, can't really shoot right now. Footwork is awful.
Mm-hmm.
But with those measurables, I'm gonna take it and see if I can do something with it. And so that's the one thing about this draft is that I think that there's going to be 2. I can see 3 people picked in the first round. I can see Derek Lively. I'd probably say 4. I think there's about 4 that could possibly be picked.
Okay.
Derek Lively is another one. Where's my man at? Tristan Vukcevic is another one. He's 7 foot. He has an improved jumper. He's long, rangy, mobile.
Yes.
Coming over from Europe. So I think that his game is one of those things that can translate to the way that the game is played nowadays. Now, whether or not can he be tough enough to where, because I do think that you got Jokic is the right balance, although he's not a rim protector, but he's not soft.
Right.
In no sense of the word. Which a lot of times when it comes to these players coming over from Europe or that European style of basketball, they can be a little soft.
Mm-hmm.
We just started seeing my boy Lauri Markkanen starting to pay dividends as far as the comparisons to Dirk that we saw coming out of college. And so I think someone like that could pay dividends for, but I believe I can see him getting drafted. I just don't see him being a lottery pick. I think that there's going to be a lot of guards that go in this draft, especially early. And then after that, it's going to be forwards, and then we'll probably see to early first round is when we'll start to see. But this is right around that same point to go back to my comparison where running backs get picked.
Yeah.
And so
I like that. I like that comparison. And I also like your pick about Victor because I had Victor down I think number 5 for me on my list.
Yeah, I had him at 4.
Okay.
Yeah, I got him at 4. If I'm doing a real list, obviously Vic's at 1. I do think that the other kid from Duke, I think he showed me more on tape.
Mm-hmm.
I've pretty much been calling him great value Sabonis.
Right.
But Kyle Filipowski, I think that he showed he's the best player on Duke. He's he's just a Swiss Army knife, being able to do a little bit of everything, mobile enough to where he can run the floor, has a decent jumper, rim protector, can run your offense as well, great passer. So I do think him, Lively, I think Lively's defense as well as Vic's just all around generational talent. I think those are 3, maybe 4 people that could go in the first round.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with you though. I agree with you there. I like the I like the international players. I had a couple of players that I had down where I had Lively, Victor was 1, so obviously the international from France. I had Tristan, I had Ryan Kalkbrenner out there, and then I had James. I'm not sure if I pronounce his name, from Barcelona, Najai. And when I think of Barcelona, I think of Spain. I think of teams and like the national team and their level of play that they have to play at, and then the Olympic play. So, yeah, the game, Ralph, is really people say it's not turning. It is internationally, and I talked about this. Me and you talked about this years ago. I'm like, at some point in time, like that's just what it's going to be, and those are the teams that players are going to be winning the championship. So, yeah, I like your list. I like it.
I think another player that I would actually want to watch out of Oregon is Khalil Ware.
Oh yeah.
Because I seen some clips and some
Potential.
footage where he doesn't have an ugly jumper. So I think how long and athletic he is, if you focus some of that energy
Defensive end.
to the defensive end and add some muscle to his frame, I think that he could be someone that I could definitely be. I ain't gonna go as far as like top 10, but I think he could be a legit starter at that 5 position. And he's still young, coming out after his freshman year.
Okay.
And so that's someone I would definitely got my eyes on. I think he could be a sleeper at that 5 position. And so we got a lot of time. So these quick hitters. We got a string of quick hitters. So
we can get through them.
We're just gonna jump straight into them then. So we've seen it's this topic here is funny to me because I've seen some of these young players lash out. So our 2021 WNBA first overall pick was released. I want to say, was it Alexis Morris from LSU? I don't remember her name, but I know she was a point guard for LSU. She was just released, and I don't remember who the young lady was, but pretty much she was cut, and then she lashed out on the internet. It was like, if you over 30, pretty much get up out of here because you've taken spots for these younger players.
Right.
Which leads to the question, is it time for expansion?
So here's the thing, right? I would like to see the WNBA expand just personally, right? They've grown, but they're still if they're gonna here's the thing. I personally want to see them expand. I believe they can expand. However, they can't rush into the expansion. There we go. And what I mean by that is what you don't want to do is have a situation like you had before when you're trying to expand and then you everything winds up falling flat with the teams, right? And then you don't have those teams anymore, right? Because the WNBA used to have more than 12 teams. Like, people have to remember that. And so I've been looking at, so what I did was I did a little research. I was watching a video by the commissioner herself, where the commissioner mentioned how there's over 300 D1 women's programs, Ralph, right? In college basketball, right? So there's a lot of talent that obviously wants to play in the WNBA, but you need to be compensated fairly for that because they're making more money with the NIL deals now. Right. There's only 12 teams, but they did have their first ever game. I believe it was like last year in Canada. And I had the numbers. They said 20,000 people were at the game. Huge. Canada, they like WNBA. So that's the spot, right? They've been having meetings about potential cities. And apparently what was said was that Canada scored very well. I think it was like Toronto, wherever they were going to have it, scored extremely well for there. So I looked at it as I would like personally for them to expand. And I believe that if they were going to do expansion, I have a couple of different quick cities. I'm looking at Oakland. Why? Because they lost the Raiders twice, technically. They've lost the Warriors. And there's rumors of the A's moving. And you have to think about the demographic of the WNBA, the types of audience that actually does watch the WNBA. This is coming from the players up top themselves. Talking about the demographic, I think that area would actually benefit from, having a WNBA team. And Portland is another city also. And you can also coincide it with, you have the Portland NBA team, you have the WNBA team. And then another one was, it wasn't New York, but I think it was like Philly and somewhere else, but it was pretty much rivalries. So if you can create rivalries that can bring viewership, and then Toronto, you have that, and then Oakland, because you pretty much don't have much right there because the Warriors, they wound up moving. So you could use the old Oakland Arena. I like that. So I think there's ways that they can do it, but what I would do is I would do 2 teams at a time. I think that was kind of like the initial plan or proposal. So start it off with 14 teams and then gradually do it. Don't try to do 10 teams, 8 teams at a time. It sounds cool, but it's just not even feasible. And then the last thing, and I'll swing it over to you for the sake of time and stuff like that, is if you don't do Oakland, Frisco, you could kind of have some type of partnership because with the WNBA, whenever you're talking about expansion, they're looking for ownership groups. So the ownership groups is able to usher in the money, right? So you need the funds to do it. And the commissioner was talking about how the WNBA is the only pro sports women's league in all of sports that has been around for 25 years, double of any other league. But she said that the reason for that is because they're partnered with the NBA. Well, if that's the case, it's kind of because you're relying also on the NBA, right? So if that's the case, why don't you just do business with
the NBA?
The NBA, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, I personally would love to see it. I know you've been to an Aces game, you enjoyed it. I think the skill level and the talent level, that's never been an issue. But yeah, I just think just get the city right and do it gradually, just like with any business. Don't try to go 15 teams because it's just it won't work and it will fail and it'll be
right.
What do you think?
I do think a gradual increase because I do think that the popularity of the sport is gradually increasing as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I do believe it's time for expansion. Now I do believe in the pushback of if you were that good, you would get the spot on the team. And so I do, but at the same time, I do think it's a little unfair because when it comes to basketball, like I said, with basketball, there's a lot of projections. They're not coming in as finished products. Now with sports, it's a little bit different. And I don't have this in front of me, but like we've seen where like the Caitlin Clarks, the Paige Buchers aren't able to go into the draft. They're saying that a man can go one and done. And so I think that a lot of times they're coming in a little older, so you have a little bit more of like they're not as old as a 4-year player, but at the same time you are getting a more well-polished talent. Where in the NBA, it's a lot more, like I said, trying to project how good this player can be. Where like we're not really getting that many Giannis Antetokounmpos coming out of nowhere for the WNBA. A lot of them are their best players were number 1 picks or top 5 picks. And so it's like, all right, at this point, you're coming in day one, and you're not really going to get much better than this. So I'm going to take this veteran who I know what I'm getting.
Right.
And so I do think that it's a little unfair because it's hard to compare because there's 32 teams that you can make it on
in the NBA.
Yeah. There's only, 10 teams?
12, yeah, in the WNBA.
12 teams total. Not even like
total.
It's 12 teams total.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things I do think it's time for expansion because I do think that it is a growing sport with the Kyrie Irving's Kobe before he passed. You get in those NBA players that are telling people, like, go to a game and see how it is. Me personally, I love any type of sporting event. And
exactly.
And being out here in Vegas, our first professional team was the Aces. And so we've already won. And so I think at some point you got to get behind it because if you enjoy the game of basketball, I understand they're not dunking, but that's not all that basketball is. It has especially with Steph Curry and Dame and the evolution of the 3-point jump shot. Now it's to watch, and I think that's helped the women's game because you can see Caitlin Clark shoot from Bora Bora, like you would say. I think that it's the growth of the sport, and I do agree with you that for the gradual growth, don't just go day one, get a bunch of buyers to put their money in, because I think that the CBA for the women, the players, while also seeing if they can get a bigger TV deal, like 2025, the NBA is getting a TV deal. We're supposed to see expansion at that point. Now let's see if in some time over the next couple of years, can they get a TV deal or a bigger TV deal? And so next up, the icon, the late great Jim Brown has passed away, and there's a lot of places that you can go. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. The first time I ever seen Jim Brown, he was an actor, and I was at least 7 or 8 by the time I realized
Who he was?
that he was a football player, and
Right,
even
right,
like that he was probably the greatest running back ever, given his time and what he was able to do during that time where he was in the league. And
right, right.
so, how important was he to the culture?
Jim Brown was a huge pillar in terms of the culture, um, especially sports, and also even in the black community. Whether you agree with some of his stances or not, that's a whole other situation. I think his legacy, with all due respect, because I try to keep it real with people's legacy, but not be negative about people's legacy as well. The best word to say his legacy was complicated. But it is what it is. But in terms of the athlete, he did a couple different things. If I'm not mistaken, he was a four sport. He was considered by many like the best lacrosse player, ever. He was all purpose yards. You talk about somebody who, for 5 straight seasons, led in all total purpose yards in the NFL. Heralded as the greatest running back of all time by a lot of players, a lot of people in general. But then when you look at it, off the court, or off the, I was just say off the court, but off the field, he was really big into you know his capitalist organizations, economical organizations. I actually put down that he started a black economical organization to invest in homes, real estate, and business opportunities in Kansas City. And he had the Cleveland Summit. Meet. So here's the thing with the Cleveland Summit meet, because we were talking about the photo, right? There's this wide misconception about that photo and what that really represented. And I've heard about this before, and I actually did my research. And so pretty much that was the photo that I'm talking about, guys. It was a monumental moment where you had Jim Brown, you had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar at that time. I think he was still Lou Alcindor at the time. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to put anything out there that's wrong, guys. And you also had Muhammad Ali. And so pretty much he actually wanted Ali to drop his complaint or his opposing view in terms of the joining the military with the Vietnam, because Jim Brown actually, he was a capitalist and he had a deal for Ali's next fight. So he was looking at it from a business perspective, right? And eventually Ali wound up like, okay, I'm gonna do this and do whatever. So that was actually what that was about. But yeah, he actually retired, like you said about Hollywood. He actually retired at the age of 30. Retired from football at the age of 30 in his prime. And so much so that the owner, I think it was, is it Haslam was the name of the owner of the Cleveland Browns? He was upset with Jim Brown because he kept, hey, you're not showing up to this, you're not showing up to these practices, you're trying to be an actor, woo. And Jim Brown was like, this is what I want to do, right? And I look at a lot of people that I kind of look at who are diverse in multiple things, Ralph. Jim Brown was one of those things. He was an actor. He was an activist. He could just do a lot of different things on and off the court. So LeBron James, he's seen him sit courtside when LeBron was playing games, and LeBron James would give him the bow and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, Jim Brown, it's a sad day in sports when he passed away. And I'll swing it over to you. I will say this: I believe they should make Jim Brown the cover athlete of Madden 24. We're in 24, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, but I'm gonna let you take it away, man.
I think that I think he definitely was an icon,
Mm-hmm.
a pioneer, especially to the sport, dealing with what he was able to deal with in college, leading to the NFL, and what he was able to do in the NFL. And like I said, like the movie that I was thinking of is Original Gangster.
Okay, yeah.
And like I said, like I seen that movie as a kid, and so I'm like, in my mind, all I knew Jim Brown was an actor. So for him to be able to have that seamless transition from football to acting to being an activist as in his community and being a pillar in his community, he has the the respect of everyone, from Mike Tyson to people that's in his sport, out of his sport, and just in general. And so I think that it's a sad day because one of the things that it makes me realize is like how much older I'm getting, because people I looked up to and saw as these significant figures are either retiring or like we even lost Tina Turner today. And so that's another one that's like, man, that's wild. Like I remember seeing the What's Love Got to Do with the movie. Now obviously that's Angela Bassett playing her, but like seeing her story and losing these figures, it's a little sad and disheartening. But next up, another quick hitter. Devin Haney wins a controversial decision over Lomachenko. But was this the best decision for the sport?
No, I don't think so. I think that we need wins and losses, Ralph. That's what we need. No. It's always going to be a controversial decision. I don't like putting. It's hard for me to say the best because when I think best, then people are going to come at me and all that. So I'm kind of indecisive. I'm kind of indecisive. So this is why I can't be a boxing judge. I guess you could say that. But I did hear what Oscar De La Hoya said. He came out and he said he was robbed, just like when De La Hoya was robbed of the Mayweather fight. He said he's still holding on to that. He wasn't robbed, man. He lost.
Yeah, you lost that fight, bro. Like,
he So, but I saw more of the highlights of it. So I'm not going to sit up here in the platform and say, hey, I was able to see it from round one to there. So I'm kind of a little indifferent on the decision making. So I'll let you kind of go a little more diving deep on that. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's the best decision. What do you think?
It's one of those things where the same way I'm referring on third person things.
Okay.
Points of views, perspectives, watched clips, looked at the punch numbers. And I seen that Lomachenko landed more power punches. He was more effective. I felt, and I even seen people saying like, oh, yeah, Haney was landing body punches, body blows, but it was like the effectiveness of the punches. From everybody that I talked to that actually watched the fight, he lost.
Right.
But when I was able to, it was one of the nights where I ended up not going to EDC on Saturday, or I went late. It's not that I didn't go. I went really late. And so I think when you look at ESPN and look at the updates of the fight, it says one thing. But if you ask everybody that watched the fight, it's like the one thing that I can say is shout out to the homie Tar. When I was talking to him, it was like everything. He was like pretty much Lomachenko won the 10th in the 9th, 10th and 11th round or something like that, and then Devin won the last round. A lot of the times and I think it's one of those things where you think about like Mayweather. I think what Mayweather was able to do in the last couple rounds was why he was able to get that decision against De La Hoya. Because I do remember going into that decision like expecting him to lose, but it was only because it was going to the judges.
Right.
And so I think when you leave it up to the judges to make the decision for you, what can you really do about it? And so that's the part where I think for the sake of the sport itself, I do think this was the best decision because it sets up fights where you can set up a fight with Lopez. You can set up a fight with Haney, who might go up in weight. Lopez just went up in weight as well, who's already defeated Lomo. You can set up a fight with Devin Haney and Shakur Stevenson. And so I think that now when you hear it's coming down the pipeline that Spence is going to win the fight, or Spence and Bud Crawford are going to get a fight, you got to have an answer to that. And so for the sake of the sport, I do think that was the best decision. I hate to see the controversy, but there's always going to be controversy when you leave it up to to the judges. And so with that, we got to get up out of here, guys. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you follow all the socials on the bottom, and we're out of here. Peace.
Peace.